invite you to put questions in the chat if you are interested. If I can't answer them right away, I will definitely try to get to them at the end, but want to give you a good idea of what research looks like at the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. So what is the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center? I'm sure you all are pretty familiar with our center already, but just a quick rundown. So we are located in Fairway, Kansas, off of Shawnee Mission Parkway, right behind KCTV5 News. So we are located within the KU Clinical Research Center building. And our mission as an Alzheimer's Disease Research Center is to improve the lives of patients and families with Alzheimer's disease by eliminating the disease through its treatment and its prevention. And so our center is one of 33 NIH designated Alzheimer's disease research centers in the United States of America. We've worked very hard to have this designation, and we are one of the primary hubs for clinical research related to brain health, aging, dementia, and cognitive health in the Midwest. So we do have research participants who are coming to our location to be in studies from, of course, Missouri and Kansas, but coming from as far as Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, and maybe some other states. So our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center is affiliated with a KU Health System memory care clinic. It's a specialty neurology outpatient clinic that's able to provide clinical care to those who have dementia or those diagnosed memory changes. And we also have obviously an extensive research program. So we have observational studies, metabolism studies, exercise and diet intervention studies, investigational medicine trials that are testing out new drugs or medications to see if they might help prevent or treat Alzheimer's disease. And we have studies that are offered for both people who do have a dementia diagnosis or memory changes, and for people who don't have any memory changes or don't have a dementia diagnosis, because we're really invested in learning not just how to better treat Alzheimer's, but how we can prevent Alzheimer's, whether that's through a medication, through adjusted lifestyle like exercise, changing diet, incorporating other type of lifestyle changes to see if that's supportive. Our center also has a cognitive care team that is able to assist patients as they're navigating a new dementia diagnosis. We have support groups for caregivers and individuals with mild dementia. We have a lifestyle enrichment for Alzheimer's prevention program that is free, and there are online webinar classes you can take to just learn about those lifestyle changes you can make to support the protection of your cognitive and brain health as you age. And of course, we have our My Lines for Brain Health program that I'm sure a lot of you are already signed up for, receiving those weekly Monday My Lines updates and information about our center and information supports through that. So what is Alzheimer's disease? So very quick, brief overview. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease and is the most common type of dementia in people 65 years and older. So a lot of times the words dementia and Alzheimer's disease are used interchangeably. Technically, they're referring to two different things. So Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. There are different types of dementia, although Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. Alzheimer's in particular is characterized by a buildup of harmful proteins in the brain called amyloid plaques and tau tangles. Women can be more impacted by Alzheimer's, or more often impacted by Alzheimer's, with a higher percentage of people with Alzheimer's being women, and a lot of caregivers being women as well. And right now, there is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. There is some treatments to help temporarily lessen symptoms, but there's not a true cure yet. And so that's what we want to eventually work towards, is finding that cure or finding a way to stop it before it even starts. And that's where clinical research comes in. So clinical research allows physicians and researchers to learn more about a disease in order to improve healthcare for future patients. So research participants can be patients with a diagnosis like Alzheimer's disease, For our research studies, we have studies for those with Alzheimer's, with frontotemporal dementia, mild cognitive impairment. We also have some Down syndrome studies, and we're expanding our list of study offerings really all of the time. And we do have studies with healthy older adults who don't have any major health conditions. And the goals for this clinical research is a number of things. So first, developing a new treatment or medication that might be helpful, identifying the cause of the illness or disease. So why is this happening in the first place? So we can get it at the root cause. Studying trends to see what groups of people may be more deeply or more often impacted by a certain disease, such as Alzheimer's, and then evaluating ways in which genetics may be related to an illness. And there's this big movement towards personalized medicine, utilizing genetic information so that medications, lifestyle changes, things like that can be tailored to that particular person, accounting for their genetic background. And I have a picture here of Aduhelm, which is a recent medication that was approved to treat Alzheimer's. There is still a lot of discussion and debate about Aduhelm. So there's still a lot of research being done on this medication to further prove its effectiveness. And even with it being a new development that we are all very excited about, it is not yet considered a type of cure. So there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. So there are multiple phases of clinical research, and many of you may have become more aware of these phases primarily because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you guys have heard, with the approval of vaccines from the medical community, there was a lot of discussion of how much testing did it go through? Did it go through enough testing? What type of testing did it go through? All medications that are approved by the FDA in America have to go through all of these phases and have to be approved for use in human patients. And so this is something that the COVID-19 vaccines went through, and this is something that all of our medications that we're testing go through as well. So the first phase that we have is preclinical studies. So those are not human research studies. Those are like in the lab with cells in a petri dish, or it could be with animals to test out potential medications and just kind of see if the science behind the medication's use is actually valid and if it could inform the development of an actual medication to use in humans. So first we have to test it out without humans, so we're not introducing any type of risk, or I guess I should say severe risk. Then after learning some more about the potential medication or treatment in the lab, then we go into human subjects research. And that starts with phase 1 clinical research, which is a very small study, usually about 20 to 80 people, usually people who don't have any medical conditions and are usually like young adults or adults. And you may hear about these studies pretty often in call quintiles and join a study and stay overnight for 2 weeks. That's typically a phase 1 study where they're really wanting to make sure to collect a lot of safety information about the medication. Do people get headaches? Do they get stomach pain? Does this impact any of their lab values? And they very closely monitor those people to ensure their safety and to track any type of side effects. Then once those safety side effects are observed, they're able to move into phase 2 testing, which is a larger group of people. It's usually looking at people who do have the disease that they're wanting to treat. So if we had an Alzheimer's disease trial, there would be people who have Alzheimer's disease. They're measuring, of course, side effects to see if that happens with the medication, but they're also measuring effectiveness and in relation to maybe some doses, different doses that are offered. So they may have the medicine at different doses, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, and see which dose is really looking like it's the best dose for that patient population. And then when they're really approaching the final research of that medication and really wanting to know, okay, let's give it to a ton of people and see if it really, really works. That's where they're going to be giving it to between 1,000 and 3,000 people, or maybe even more, and really collect a lot of information to see if it works. And then once the medication is approved, There is phase 4 clinical research where they monitor for long-term side effects. So that medication Aduhelm that I showed on this last slide, that medication, we actually, we anticipate we would be having phase 3, but also phase 4 clinical trials that are monitoring the long-term side effects from that medication, because it's already been approved by the FDA, but we still want to keep learning about it. We just want to know, is it really effective and is it safe? What type of side effects are there? So something that is common in clinical research studies, and this is very common for medication studies, but can also be the case in other intervention or lifestyle change studies, is randomization, or having it be a randomized controlled trial. So this is where a clinical trial randomly assigns individuals to receive one of multiple treatments. So it could be, if we had a medication, it would be, they would be assigned to receive a placebo, which is kind of like the fake medicine. They could be assigned to receive a small dose of the medicine, a medium or a large dose of the medicine, and the patient won't be told what dose or what group they are assigned to, because we want to know, without someone being biased and thinking, oh, I'm getting the highest dose, I'm going to do the best, which can be really encouraging. We don't want to accidentally skew the information we're collecting because someone's like so excited about receiving the medication. So by randomly assigning people to these groups, we're able to avoid that subconscious bias when we're evaluating the effectiveness of these treatments. Now, this can happen in exercise or nutrition studies as well. So our exercise studies typically have a group of people who is doing like regular cardio workouts, and then another group of people that is doing more stretching or toning, or maybe doing weightlifting. So you could be assigned to one of those 3 groups. Our nutrition studies, you may be assigned to a high fat diet that is more like a ketogenic diet or a low fat diet, to just see like how fat levels impact the brain. And of course, in those types of things with exercise and diet, you're going to know which group you're in. It's not blinded in that sense because you know what you're eating, you know what you're doing for exercise. So sometimes it's not blinded, but we do have that random assignment just so we can reduce that bias while participating in this study. And I do see that someone mentioned that they were in the KU statin study, and it falls into that type. And yes, we do have the statin study, which is actually one of our studies that is open to even younger adults. A lot of our studies are only open to those usually like 55 or 60 and older. But that is one of our studies that's open to ages, I believe, 35 to 55 or 65. So it's a little bit more flexible, which we're really excited about. So thanks for your participation. That's great. So as I was saying, this study blinding also conceals the identity of the medication from one or more parties in the study. And I have this picture here that is just a little facetious and fun. But when you think about it and you look at it, it could seem a little intimidating, like, hold up, shouldn't the doctor know what I'm receiving? So what we do, we approach this very carefully and thoughtfully. So we, of course, inform you and your study partner, if you have a study partner, about what the study medication is, what it's made of, how it works, what potential side effects are. We are very aware of that. And although we don't know specifically if you're receiving like the actual study medication or the fake medication, which is called a placebo, or what dose it is, we are always going to act as if you were receiving the real medication. So if you came in and you said, I started taking, those pills that you told me for the study, and I started getting these headaches, then we would say, we're going to take note of that. We're going to be really observant, and we want to make sure you're safe. And so we always pretend like it could be the actual medication. Now, and before I move forward, just to note that when our study teams are blinded to this information, that's because we also don't want our excitedness and our encouragement to impact our ability to see how patients are doing in this study in terms of, sometimes we have patients who are just so excited and so encouraged, and we're excited with them that we're going to think, we think they're doing better, and we know they're receiving the medication, and that's why they're doing better. And we don't want to accidentally get so lost in the excitement that we can't keep a clear mind in knowing how memory and how side effects are happening. So that's why we stay blinded. But all of that being said, if there was an emergency and we needed to have that information, we have the ability at a moment's notice to get that information and to unblind ourselves and you, so that we can have that information of, are you actually receiving the medication or a placebo for your clinical care? So that is still always an opportunity. So with clinical research, we have had the clinical research community in general around the world has had some issues and has learned a lot in ways that we can be doing things much more ethically. And so there are some very concerning stories from years past about how clinical research was managed, but we always want to be really mindful of doing things in the most informative way for our patients and our caregivers, and also in the most ethical way. So most informed, most ethical, most safe way possible. So there are a number of laws that have been passed to ensure the safety and privacy of clinical trial participants. And with the advent of these laws, we have two things that have really helped protect and support ethical and safe participation in research. So the first thing would be the informed consent form and the informed consent process. So the informed consent form is that sometimes annoyingly long document that you'll get at the beginning of a study. It details out all of the information about the study, what you're going to do, who's involved, how many people are going to get signed up, why they're doing it, what procedures you have to do, what are the risks, what are the benefits. And so the study coordinator and the primary investigator for the study are tasked with making sure that you are very well informed of everything that's going to happen in the study. That is at the very first visit, and then it is their responsibility to keep you updated on any changes throughout the study. So that conversation is going to continue, and they're going to say, 6 months in, we've learned this new information. We wanted to let you know, are you still okay with participating in the study? And of course, it is always up to you if you'd like to continue participating. We also have an institutional review board, which is an ethics board or an ethics committee designed to approve or reject research involving human subjects. So with everything that we do as a part of a research study, we have to have this IRB, this institutional review board, review everything that we're going to do. And they check off on if it's ethical and if it's safe, and if the possible benefits outweigh the possible risks, because we don't want to introduce any large possible risk if we can. So there's a lot of safety built in with the informed consent process and that institutional ethics review board. And something I always want to highlight to everyone is that clinical research is completely voluntary. You have the right to withdraw from a study at any time, at any moment, for any reason. Now, with that, we always say, please talk to your study coordinator about that, so that if there's any safety concern, they can continue to do that follow-up and make sure you're safe. But you have the right to withdraw at any time, so you never have to be in a study. Risks that can happen in clinical research. So of course, this is always dependent on the particular clinical research study that you're participating in, and you should be receiving that information in detail from the study coordinator. But some of the common risks that happen, so there's no guarantee of benefit when you're in a study. So you can take the medicine, and we're really hopeful that maybe it can help, or it can help future generations, but there's no guarantee that it will be effective or beneficial. There is uncertainty about receiving the actual medication versus the placebo or the fake medication. Some people don't want to take a placebo, and I completely understand, but that is very common for a lot of our medication studies. So that is one thing that may not be very attractive for people in studies. And then there is the possibility of side effects from the study related procedures or the study medication. So this doesn't just apply for medication studies, but also exercise studies, diet studies. Sometimes when someone starts a new diet, they may have some upset stomach. Sometimes if someone starts a new exercise routine, they may realize that their joints are hurting a little bit more than they realized before. So there's always some set of risks. And so we always encourage people to ask as much as they can at the beginning of participation to just learn more about that. But there are some potential benefits of clinical research. And again, I qualify this with it depends on the particular research study, and there's no guarantee that there will be a benefit. But in general, you can sometimes get access to additional health monitoring without a charge. This never replaces regular clinical care. But if we happen to find something that is concerning to your health and we see that it could be concerning, we're going to let you know. We can't always do that with research particular procedures, but if we see something and we know it, we're not going to stay quiet. We want to let you know that so you can follow up with your own doctors and have a bigger discussion. You can gain access to investigational medication treatments or other treatments that are not yet marketed to the general public. So the qualification is they're not FDA approved, but you are able to access those research treatments to see if they may be helpful. The biggest benefits are being able to help others, including future generations who may be at risk of developing dementia in the future. And then potentially understanding better your own risk factors for yourself or your family in the development of Alzheimer's, especially if there's like a PET scan involved, an ApoE genetic test, and you're able to receive results. That can be informative to you as you just think of your brain health as you age and do those kind of future planning. But the biggest benefit of all is really helping in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. A lot of our patients and participants have said, I'm doing this not for myself, but for my children and my grandchildren. And what a beautiful gift to give by participating in a study and being able to give back in that kind of bigger sense of turning a very difficult situation into something really beautiful and supportive. So clinical research at the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. So if you have participated in a clinical research study before, you may be familiar with this process. So the first part is contacting our research center at 913-588-0555, option 1. And you'll first have what we call a research recruitment pre-screening interview. So I manage the team of individuals who are answering the phones at that phone number. So whenever you call with interest in research and they kind of get all your contact information and health information, it is at that phone number. And they're collecting all that information about you, about your memory, about your contact information, demographic information, health history, because we have so many different studies going on at any one time that we want to narrow it down and see which studies are you actually eligible for, and then have a discussion with you about where your interests are so that we can find a good study match for you. So once you're matched with a particular study, one that you're interested in and that you're looking generally eligible for, you would go through some screening or diagnostic testing just to confirm that you're eligible for the study and to confirm that you're not having any concerning health conditions, like any type of heart conditions that would be, something we want you to take care of before starting the study, any type of, high cholesterol that's concerning. So there is that screening procedure. And then once you're approved to start the real study, whether it's taking the medication, starting the exercise, starting the diet plan, you would receive the treatment or the placebo or start that diet plan. And the researchers would be collecting information along the way to see how that intervention impacts you. And then some studies have follow-up where once you're done with the study, 6 weeks, 6 months, maybe a year later, they just contact you and say, hey, how are things going? How's your health doing? Because they want to see if there's any potential side effects that have happened later, or just to see how you were doing and see how you felt about your participation in the past. And so we have a question about what are the ages to participate? Great question. We encourage, if you're at all interested, give us a call and we can talk specifically about your particular case. In general, our center offers studies for people typically age 55 and older. If someone has a diagnosis of dementia, it's typically age 50 or 55 and older. For those who don't have a diagnosis of dementia or memory changes, but are an older adult, then it is typically 60 or 65 and older. And we are thinking about potentially in the future having more middle-aged adult studies. So I always invite everyone, like, you can give us a call, you can get in our database, and even if we don't have something for you now, it could be 2 or 3 years from now, we get a new study and we're going to send you that information. So you're always welcome to give us a call and we can talk some more. But generally, I would say 55 or 60 and older. And so as you're considering your potential study opportunities, we encourage you to ask questions. So we're going to give you as much information as we can, but we continue to learn from our patients and participants. So I have this website here from the Department of Health and Human Services that just has a really great document about questions to ask when you're deciding whether to volunteer for research. And so you may be thinking, so who am I even going to ask these questions to? It would either be the study coordinator, that is kind of your research partner throughout your participation. They're going to be your first point of contact, the one that you call with questions about where do I go? When do I get there? Do I have to fast for that blood draw? And then the primary investigator, or the clinician for the study, is going to be another great resource, and is going to be that medical doctor or nurse practitioner who's going to have those kind of specific medical questions. So I encourage you to look at those questions and reflect on them before you get started, and just kind of continue to ask questions along the way as well. So research locations. Where does the research take place? This always depends on the particular study, but for many of our studies, at least a few of the visits are going to take place in the KU Clinical Research Center in Fairway, Kansas, where our offices are located. So that's right off of Shawnee Mission Parkway behind KCTV 5. If you're in a study that has some type of MRI or PET scan imaging, those scans may take place at the KU Medical Center, which is the main medical center campus that is at off of Rainbow and 39th in Kansas City, Kansas, right off of State Line. And sometimes we also have PET scans done at the KU Cancer Center in Westwood, which is a little bit more easy to navigate from the parking garage that they have. Some other research locations can include your local YMCA. So if you are in a exercise study, some of our exercise studies partner with YMCAs or local fitness facilities so that you can do exercise or personal training at those locations. And then sometimes you're able to do your research participation on the computer, over the phone, questionnaires like that. It depends on each study. So what are the things you might be doing as a part of the study? It depends on the study, but in general, it can be having a physical or neurological exam with one of our clinicians. If you're in an exercise study, you may have exercise observed by a clinician or have personal training done. You may have an EKG or an ECG to monitor your heart health. You will most often have at least one questionnaire that you're going to fill out to give us your thoughts and experiences. You may have to do some memory or cognitive testing depending on the particular study. And sometimes there are blood or urine labs that are collected. And some studies involve all of these procedures and are a little bit more involved, while others may only include a questionnaire and interview, and then you're good to go. So We definitely have a discussion about that as you are considering studies so that you know how much of a commitment that may be. So is clinical research right for me? Well, it depends on what you're interested in and what studies you may be wanting to do. So some of our currently enrolling studies are related to those medication trials. So right now we are offering some medication studies that are testing different medications for different groups of people. So we first have our In-Front study, and that is a clinical trial testing a medication to help treat frontotemporal dementia, which is a less common type of dementia, but we are offering that medication trial. That is for people who have frontotemporal dementia or people who don't have frontotemporal dementia but have a higher risk of it because they've had a family member who had it. We also have the Signal AD study. That is an Alzheimer's clinical trial testing a medication that is anti-inflammatory in people who have mild Alzheimer's disease. And then we have the AHEAD study that is testing a medication in people who don't have Alzheimer's disease but are at that increased risk of developing it in the future due to testing that we do as a part of the study. And I have this little kind of like IV bag here because these studies do involve a medication that is administered through an IV infusion, like how you would receive IV fluids if you went to the hospital. What's nice about that is you come in, you get your infusion, and then you go and you don't have to worry about keeping track of medicine at home. But it is a little bit more invasive, although we have a team of staff who are really trained and familiar with providing those medications. We've also had the statin study that is studying statins in aging and seeing how that is supportive to adults. We also have a study that is testing Farxiga. So Farxiga is actually a drug that is approved for use in people with diabetes, but we're testing it to see if it might help with Alzheimer's disease. We have some nutrition studies currently. Our therapeutic diets and Alzheimer's disease study, it's also known as TDAD. We're testing a high fat versus a low fat diet to see how that may be supportive to those with Alzheimer's. The NICE study is a Mediterranean diet study that is offered to those who have normal cognition or who don't have those memory changes associated with dementia. We have exercise trials, which the first one is called the Moving Together study, and that is offered for patients with dementia and their caregiver. It's actually really fun in that the patient and caregiver can participate from home via Zoom. So you can do those group exercise classes together from home, just using your internet connection, which is really awesome. And we're excited about that. We have the COMET study. That is for people who don't have those diagnosed memory changes, wanting to get a more structured exercise routine and seeing how that's supportive to brain health. And then we also have our very important clinical cohort study and BioHermes study, which are observational studies to learn more about brain health and aging. And those studies can provide you with results from a study PET scan or from other study procedures, which can be really helpful, especially for those individuals who aren't interested in taking another medication. So some people are like, I want to be involved with research, but I do not want to take a medication. We have opportunities for you, and we're really excited to share those with you through our observational studies or our exercise and diet studies. So we still welcome those inquiries. And then last, I like to point out this fun new pilot study that we have. It's called the Fight AD study. It is a hot tub study for individuals who don't have a dementia diagnosis, but it is studying heat therapy and how heat therapy may be supportive to brain health. So for that study, people who are interested in participating would come to our research hot tub and have a certain number of hot tub visits a week. And so we've never had a study like that. So it's kind of fun. We can say we've had our first hot tub study and just trying a little bit of everything. All right, so how to get involved. So if you are at all interested in participating in research, I will have someone from the team share just our website, the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center website in the chat so that you can access that link and be able to see our website. So our website, and many of you may be familiar with this already, but it's at www.kumc.edu/KUADRC. And if you see there's this button here for research, if you click on that, there will be a spot to sign yourself up, and there will be a spot to also see our currently enrolling studies. Our phone number is also 913-588-0555 option 1, and that will bring you straight to our research recruitment team. And even if you're not sure, like, I don't know, I just want to learn more, I want to get in your, database and see if maybe you'll have something for me in the future, we always invite you to do that. And I have information here, contact information, about ways that you can connect with our center that I just went over. We always encourage you to spread the word about My Alliance, our My Alliance for Brain Health program. Really one of the biggest ways we get people into research is by you all sharing your experiences with one another, and just sharing your good experience that would maybe be encouraging for someone who's looking for a way to give back. So we always invite you to spread the word. And then I do have information for Amy Wilson, our brain health navigator, with her phone number. She is a wonderful support for our research recruitment team, so that if you happen to have questions that you're like, well, I'm interested in research, but I have a lot of questions that aren't related to research, and I'm interested in maybe your support groups or your LEAP lifestyle enrichment program, you can reach out to Amy, and she can give you some good information about those programs as well. So I really appreciate your time today, and I see that there are some questions in the chat, so I will scroll back up to see what those are. Let's see, what are the ages to participate and what is older? I'm 80 years old. So I believe a lot of our studies do go up to the age of 80 or 85. Some studies don't have an upper limit and they allow anyone over the age of 65. It depends on the particular study. So I always invite you to reach out to us and we can talk about that. And again, even if you call, if you change your mind, if you hear a little bit more and you're like, oh, this isn't my thing, no problem, no obligation at any time. I have participated in several studies and the cohort study. Everyone at the KU-ADRC is great. Thank you. Well, we appreciate that feedback so much because we know we can't do anything in the fight against Alzheimer's without research participants. So we can learn more. So that is wonderful. Let me see. I highly recommend KU's work. Very professional and genuinely nice folks. I'll finish the statin study in the winter and we'll get in another one ASAP after that. Awesome. So happy to hear that. Was there a hot tub study before at KU? So this hot tub study started, I want to say maybe at some point in the fall. So it's a pretty new study for us. And sometimes we may not mention particular studies during the research consideration process if we know that you are not an eligible candidate for that study at that time. So that may have happened, but if you're interested in the hot tub study now, I welcome you to give that number a call and we can talk some more about it, but that's definitely a new one. Now, other research groups at the KU Medical Center that aren't Alzheimer's related, maybe they have a hot tub study. I'm not sure. That would be fun if there were a bunch of groups doing hot tub studies. And then, do you have any clinical trials for Aduhelm? So currently, I will say that there's been a lot of discussion about Aduhelm. Of course, you may have seen some discussion in the news about FDA and CMS related discussions around Aduhelm. that has made potential research studies with Aduhelm we have to be in a little bit of a holding pattern until there's a little bit more clarity there. I do anticipate we might have some Aduhelm studies in the future. I can't say so for sure. So if you are interested in a Aduhelm study, I invite you to call our research group, tell them that you're interested in an Aduhelm study. They will likely tell you that we don't offer one at this time, but we can make a special note in our database system that says you're interested so that when the study is offered, then we can give you a call back and reconsider you for the study once it opens then. And again, I encourage everyone, like if you haven't heard from us in 6 months or a year, because we are in contact with thousands of people, I invite you to give us a call or send us an email and check in and say, hey, haven't heard anything about research in a while. I just want to check in. Is there anything new going on? Do you have that Aduhelm study yet? And then we're happy to link you there. Any other questions that anyone would like to pose?